All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're on a quest to find the loudest sound in recorded history. And it's a journey that's going to take us from screaming rock concerts to the absolute depths of the ocean, and then all the way back to one of the most violent events our planet has ever seen.
So, what is the loudest sound you can even have? Seems like a simple question, right? But to really get it, we first have to wrap our heads around what loud actually means. So, let's start by getting some perspective. Okay, to get our bearings, let's start with something we can all relate to. Something famously loud. Rock concerts. Back in 1972, Deep Purple got into the Guinness Book of World Records for hitting 117 decibels. Wild. But then, The Who came along in '76 and just blew past them at 126 decibels. And Led Zeppelin, they supposedly hit 130. I mean, that is literally instant hearing damage territory. But as loud as that is, humanity? We are not the champs here. Not even close.
Yeah, even the loudest rock bands on Earth have nothing on the animal kingdom. Get this, a blue whale's call can hit an incredible 188 decibels. That is a sound is so powerful, other whales can hear it from hundreds of miles away across the ocean. Just try to imagine that. And that incredible power of sound underwater leads us to this amazing scientific mystery. So back in 1997, hydrophones, underwater microphones, picked up this extremely loud, really low-frequency sound. They nicknamed it the bloop, and it was so loud sensors over 5,000 kilometers apart detected it. The craziest part? Its sound profile was a lot like a living creature's. So for years, people were buzzing, was it some giant, undiscovered sea monster, way bigger than any blue whale we've ever seen? So, was it a monster? Well, the truth turned out to be just as massive. Just a little less, monstrous. Scientists eventually figured out that the bloop's unique sound profile perfectly matched something called a cryosysm, an ice quake. It wasn't some deep sea leviathan, it was the sound of a truly gigantic iceberg cracking and fracturing off the coast of Antarctica. Literally a mountain of ice just disintegrating. Okay, so we've got rock bands, whales, giant icebergs, all making these incredibly loud noises. But here's the thing. No matter what's making the sound, they all have to play by the same rules, the laws of physics. And those laws, well, they say there's a hard limit, a ceiling to how loud a sound can actually get. Okay, so how does that work? Let's break it down. Think of sound as a wave of pressure. It pushes air pressure up, and then it pulls it down, over and over. But you can only pull the pressure down so far, right? The absolute bottom is a perfect vacuum, zero pressure. So if the wave drops all the way down to a vacuum, it can only go up by that same amount in the other direction. Push any more energy into it, and it literally stops behaving like a sound wave. And that absolute physical limit, the sound barrier for a wave in our air at sea level, it has a number. And that number is 194 decibels. That's it. That's the ceiling. Theoretically, no sound traveling through the air can get any louder than that. 194 decibels. The sound barrier. The end of the road for sound. Or is it? What if I told you that something happened on our planet that was so violent, it just completely smashed right through that limit? And that, my friends, brings us to our main event. The year is 1883, and we're looking at the eruption of the volcano Krakatoa. The sound it made was estimated to be an absolutely mind-blowing 310 decibels, an impossible number. So, how? How could it shatter a fundamental law of physics by that much? Well, here's the twist. At that insane level of energy, it wasn't a sound wave anymore. It became something else entirely, a shock wave. You see, it was no longer a vibration traveling through the air. It was a literal wall of compressed air, a moving blast of overpressure, traveling faster than sound. A totally different and way, way more destructive phenomenon. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this, let's travel to the island of Rodriguez. It's almost 3,000 miles. That's nearly 4,800 kilometers away from Krakatoa. People there heard the explosion. It took almost 4 hours for that pressure wave to even get to them, and when it did, they reported it sounded like cannons firing from a ship right off their coast. Now, imagine being closer. The effects of that shockwave were just apocalyptic. It was so intense it ruptured the eardrums of sailors on a ship 40 miles away. It shattered windows in cities 100 miles away. This wasn't a sound you just heard with your ears. It was a physical force that slammed into your entire body. And believe it or not, the shockwave didn't just stop there. It just kept going. This pressure wave was so unbelievably powerful that instruments all around the globe tracked it for 5 whole days, as it literally circled the entire planet. It raced away from the volcano, slammed into the exact opposite side of the Earth, bounced back, and did that journey 3.5 times before it finally ran out of steam.
Okay, let's put that energy into perspective. Think about the most powerful weapon humans have ever created, the Tsar Bomba, the biggest nuke ever detonated. That thing released about 50 megatons of energy. The Krakatoa eruption? Scientists estimate it was around 200 megatons, 4 times more powerful than the biggest bomb mankind has ever built. Just incredible.
And the eruption's impact was so much more than just that initial blast. It triggered horrifying tsunamis over 100 feet high. It shot so much sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere that it actually lowered the entire planet's average temperature for a year, causing what's called a volcanic winter. The skies changed too. It created these intensely vivid red sunsets all over the world for months. Sunsets so dramatic, they're believed to have inspired Edvard Munch's famous painting, The Scream. So in the end, the loudest sound ever recorded wasn't really a sound at all, was it? It was an event so powerful it literally broke the definition of sound and became a force that reshaped the planet. It changed our climate, it circled the globe for days, and it even left its mark on our art. Which really makes you wonder, right? If a single event can do all that, what other immense, terrifying forces of our world are we totally underestimating?